Welcome back to this edition of the Gaming Tailgate Podcast. I am CDJ, joined by Tommy, JBHuskers. We are, if you get the Deluxe Edition RVP, 1 week away. We'll be playing College Football 26. Guys, how are you doing?
Ready just to finally get the game in my hands. I mean, obviously I got to play the beta, but still, I mean, it's been so long and we had such a lull period, and then now everything's just getting, back to back
Swamped.
slammed in our face.
Yeah, I'm going to be gone next weekend, so being able to play it a little early is going to be good because I'll get to play a good 3, 4 days before I got to take off. So I'm excited to at least have a chance to get my hands on it next Monday.
Like you said, we're getting swamped with news here. We went months with very little. Now we have what, like 5 things in 8 days? Like, I love you guys, but I'm getting tired of editing videos. I'm going to be honest here. It's wearing on me a
Yeah.
little bit here. My beauty sleep is lacking. With all the
Oh
news coming
no.
out, we should clarify this is June 30th. I mean, you never know. We might be back tomorrow night with another one, the way the news keeps coming out randomly. We had the first look at gameplay with Bordeaux facing a couple Alabama players. Guys, let's make it just a free-flowing conversation. That it was they played 2 games. They had Scott O'Gallagher and Nick Mazesco there as the host. They kind of, as the game went along, talked about different game features. They almost spliced advertisements in with the gameplay. And, oh, yeah, I come back at the end for the finish of each game. Let's just talk about what we saw, maybe in no particular order, things we liked, didn't like, questions we still have, which I think there's still a lot, which is weird for a game 1 week away. Tommy, first, just anything you want to talk about in that first look. What'd you see? What'd you think?
Something that really hadn't been talked about much, and I experienced it in the betas. Kind of was wanting to say something about it before, but I was waiting, and now that they've kind of shown it, I'll go ahead and jump out and say it. The movement of players is a lot more loose, and that's a good thing. In 25, it seemed like you would catch a pass and be caught in an animation and couldn't cut up
Mhm.
field. But in 26, it's a lot better. You'll catch the pass, and depending upon presumably depending upon the ratings, you'll be able to cut up field a lot better. So that'll help prevent some of those running backs running out of bounds right at the sideline or something like that. But then even running up through the middle of the line, you can also kind of cut up field a little bit better as well. To me, I would almost liken it to holding the L2 on college football 25, but on 26, you don't have to hold the L2.
Mm.
It seems to have that more fluid of a movement to where you can, really make better plays and really, it's kind of related to that wide open gameplay. But I'll say that obviously that's on offense, but even on defense, your players have like linebackers, for example, if you use a linebacker, they
Mm.
have better movement as well. They're not getting, stuck in mud trying to break on a play or something like that. So
Mm.
saw that in the video here. Obviously, I was kind of looking for it anyways, but yeah, that's
Mm.
from the beta that was kind of the same thing I experienced.
Yeah, a good example of that would have been when Bordeaux was faking out one of the guys in the end zone, and then he cut course right back to the receiver that was getting thrown to and picked him off. Though he didn't fare too well in those 2 games, that was a good play by him there. And on top of that, I really like the just kind of the it seems like the deep ball is, or at least the deep pass, not just the deep ball,
Mm.
but the deep pass is kind of back. It was very hard to pass deep in 25. 26, it looks like you're going to be able to kind of based on ratings and things such as that, as well you're going to be able to go over the top. It's going to be more 50-50 rather than the percentages of 25, and just some certain deep routes and being able to, if you can execute it right, you're going to be able to pass deep a lot easier and a lot more efficient in 26. But and then the defending, as I mentioned, just with that Bordeaux play in the end zone, that also was on the other side of the coin, is going to be kind of the equalizer to, even though I think the offense is going to have a little more of a kind of an uptick than the defense this year. I think we're going to see a lot more dominant offenses than defenses, but of course that remains to be seen. Obviously, there's going to be patches and tweaks along the way, but it'll be interesting to see if it's going to be as wide open as it seems out of the box.
I will say the one thing I hated about the gameplay, and obviously they're just there having fun, so do what you're gonna do. I wish EA would have released some of their own gameplay that was just kind of more tailored to the hardcore audience, but whatever. But obviously it seemed like every single play they were just trying to launch bombs down the field.
Mhm.
Hopefully, defense can compete with that a little bit better. Obviously, Ryan Williams is going to go up and get his passes regardless. But I will say in the video, you didn't really see any or didn't see very many 50-50 balls. But I will say in the beta that those were there. Like even on, somewhat deep passes, you could still get a 50-50 to where it was truly a competitive catch, but he actually comes down with the ball. So,
Yeah, yeah, one of those good examples was when that guy dove for it, and you couldn't tell, like, you couldn't tell live until you saw the first
Mhm.
down marker go, but you couldn't tell that that guy dove for it. But then you saw the replay, just how amazing that catch was, and I don't think you would have saw anything like that in 25, would you?
it would have been rare for sure.
Yeah.
It happens sometimes, but yeah, definitely rare. So, yeah, long story short, I think, like you said, the passing is back this year. As well as they touched on the no picks without eyes or whatever they said. Basically, if the defense is not looking for the ball, they're not going to be able to make a play on the ball. I will say that I watched Bordeaux's kind of behind the scenes video, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
He mentioned late in the video that based upon his experience, if you click on, you're still going to be able to make that pick, even though the defensive back is
Mhm.
blind. So, again, if you're a user that wants to switch on and make the pick, it sounds like you'll still be able to do that.
And
Civ
then
said
you were
they were
mentioning about
bad.
how a bunch of, a lot of deep throws. I did see some, I did see some kind of swing passes and things like that, and it looks like they still are going to be effective against the right defenses. I saw that happen a couple of times. But yeah, I agree. I wish we would have a developer with an hour long video, but of course, who's gonna, are they gonna put in the time? I don't know. But yeah, we definitely love to see that. But at least there was a little bit of variety, even though the majority of it was bombs.
I think the attention span of today's fans is too short to be able to watch a really long,
Yeah.
hour-long video or whatever.
Mhm.
So,
There'd
I
be
mean, they
some
cut up
diehards that
two
would love to
games
see
and
it.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I mean, they used to have that back in the day, but
Yeah.
Mhm.
they cut up two videos in what 17 minutes or two games in 17 minutes. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think even that's probably on the long side for some people.
Speaking of your point of no eyes, no picks, Civ on Twitter, he put out that's only for computer when you're playing the computer. So if you're playing a human, or like JB said, if you or Tommy, like you said, if you click on it, it sounds like it still exists. So I think we need to be maybe not we, but EA when they put that out there, maybe should have put a little asterisk next to it that it's reduced, but it's not gone.
Yeah, which to me, I'm not crazy about.
Mm.
No, I mean, if you time
If
it right, maybe at best you deflect it. But yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand if you're controlling the goal guy the whole time, but if you're just clicking on just before the pick comes in or whatever, then no, I don't think he should be able to make that pick. I can see it both ways, but
Mm.
I'm somebody who can make that play a lot, but then there's a lot of people who can't, and
Hmm.
so I shouldn't be able to override player ratings or kind of make up a play that otherwise would have been bad or something like that.
Mm.
So. Yeah. I'm not saying that I want to play exactly like the computer, but at the same time, I don't want a huge advantage over the computer that they can't get.
Are you guys like me where when you watch a video like this, it's kind of tough to tell some things because we don't know difficulty level. We don't always know the play call they're making. We don't know how much time they've had on the sticks. There are times where, especially like the going deep stuff, there are times I saw inaccurate passes, which I liked. There were times I saw a lot of going deep, and I thought that guy probably shouldn't have been that open. But I didn't know what they called on defense, especially when Bordeaux was on defense on that last drive in the Florida State Alabama game. What did he call that he got beat so badly? Was
Yeah.
that just a player
Well,
rating thing? Was it an ability thing? Or was that a bad defense thing? I could, it's one of those I can't tell.
he explained that in his videos that
Mm,
the several times that he got beat deep.
mm,
Apparently they changed the control scheme for he was trying to spread the defensive line to have contain better.
uh,
And the way they changed it, he instead was pressing every time he tried to do it. Like he was trying to remember what he was doing in 25, and when he did that, it would end up pressing like the whole defense or whole defensive backs or something. I don't
mm,
know exactly what he was up to, but yeah, long story short, it sounded like that was just a matter of getting used to the new game. So hopefully that's all it is. But yeah, it's
mm,
obviously until, like you said, you don't know the difficulty, you don't know all of the ins and outs of how they're playing the game.
mm,
But until we get our hands on it, then we're gonna have to just assume what we see is, take it with a grain of salt.
right.
Yeah, it seemed like Williams was a better player than than Kirkpatrick as well. Just kind of watching it. Though Kirkpatrick made some good plays, it did seem that Williams was the better gamer overall. Might have been a better gamer than Bordeaux too, because he was showing him a few things, it looked like.
To your point about EA putting out a longer gameplay video, they have guys on staff who are pretty good former competitive players that I think would be a
Mhm.
great video to put out at some point. I mean, even if it's just a quarter, just record it and put it out this weekend. Say, here's two pro or former
Just
pro, whatever you want to
just
call it.
raw unedited footage,
Yeah,
you
just play
know.
one quarter.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe they play a whole game, then if it's close in the fourth, that's what they record and share out later on.
I imagine though that they would see that as a negative from the standpoint of that, you're going to have people bashing the game no matter what, and that just gives them
Mm,
more ammunition. If they pause and slow it down and break it down frame by frame, then oh, he didn't do this right or something like that. So I mean, I can kind of understand EA not wanting to do that ahead of the launch. You don't want people to just pick everything apart
mm,
with every little issue. With this, they can kind of, wipe it away and say, well, these were two guys that are new on the sticks and they're still learning the game or however you want to phrase it. But
true.
yeah, if you had two pros and everything was, a little shaky in some spots or something like that, then it's going to convince somebody not to buy the game. But
True.
I can't imagine that it would get any additional sales.
Well, they have to market it at some point though to get
No,
additional
I
sales
agree.
too. So
Yeah, no, I agree.
That would help.
I mean, at the end of the day, their marketing is poor. I'm not going to defend that. I'm just
mm,
saying that, you know, putting out raw gameplay, there's going to be raw gameplay a week from now. So
right.
putting it out now, it's not going to sell any additional copies, I don't think.
No, I figured maybe over the weekend, but I suppose like we know the YouTubers have all but said they're putting up their content next weekend. So I suppose
Yep.
EA can celebrate the fourth. The preferred YouTubers are taking care of marketing from that point on.
Yep. Yep.
What do you guys think of that field goal meter? Saw our first look of the increased home field advantage, and there was a
Ugh,
sequence where that meter,
ugh.
all but invisible, cuts in and out. I guess if you're good with memorizing timing or catching a beat, you're probably gonna be okay. But if you can't catch a beat or hold a beat, you might be in trouble.
I was already bad enough as it was when they were,
Mm,
at the 40 and it's just going wild and the kickers got bad accuracy. I mean, there were times had lucky, had some lucky years with some kickers that had some good accuracy, so I was able to hit most of those. But man, when you miss, it was ugly. And now you're adding that meter, the arrow looks like it's shaking worse than 25, and then throw in the meter, the football meter disappearing while you're doing that. And then of course I bet the clock's probably disappearing as well because you got that added in there as well. So that's a whole mess there for if you have a bad kicker on your team.
Yeah, I watched it a little bit more, and if you have enough time at the line of scrimmage, then you can time it pretty well because yes, it'll kind of fade in and out, but eventually you'll be able to see it at the center of where you're trying to aim for. So you can kind of, again, like you said, you have to time it a little bit, but you can kind of watch it from that standpoint. It's not like it's never visible in the middle or something like that. But yeah, it's definitely one tip I'll give that I worked in 25 and I'm assuming it's going to be the same in 26 is you don't always have to kick it as hard as you can. For these short kicks, especially, kick it with very little power and you're still going to get the ball to go through. You're not going to get as dinged as much on accuracy and
mm,
everything. So that's where a lot of those wild kicks came from is that people were just, on NCAA 14, you just boom the ball as hard as you can every time. But on 25, even especially if you're on the close hash, you definitely want to aim it correctly and kick it very, very little
Yeah,
power. That's
I learned that really quick on PATs on 25. I'd missed the first few PATs I attempted. I'm like, oh yeah, I only have to go like at a quarter of the meter and this would be
right.
perfectly fine.
for sure. We did get our first look at the QB height, kind
Mm,
of how that's going to come into play. It seems as though they were kind of trying to set it up like they would run the quarterback right behind a tall offensive lineman just to kind of give you a visual of what it's going to look like. So in live gameplay, we'll see how it actually works. But the if your quarterback is short, like they gave an example of a 5'9" and a 5'10" quarterback, if your quarterback
Castellanos.
is
Yep.
Yep. If your quarterback is short, then if they have a offensive or defensive lineman in their face, then the ball may go a little wild. It's not going to go like, 10 yards downfield, but it's going to be a little high. So the, running back out in the flats is not going to be able to catch it in stride or something like that. So yeah, I mean, that was our first look at kind of how that's going to play out. So Again, we'll have to see, how all of that plays out in terms of do you have to have a, really tall quarterback or how does that play into
or really short
everything?
offensive linemen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you think Castellanos is going to get a complex about this, being that he's the poster child for field vision?
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, I'm sure people, whether in person or on Twitter or
Hmm.
somewhere, they're ribbing him for it or whatever. But at the same time, when you're a college quarterback and you're 5'9" and you're able to do everything that he's able to do, I mean, it at
Hmm.
least kind of he can say something back to him, I guess.
Right. He's a good player, but he's the only one they're picking on. There's
Right.
what, two or three times where they brought him out on video in the game to show it.
Well, and there was also the quarterback from Boise State. I think he was
Oh, true.
5'10". So yeah,
Well,
he's a
Yeah, I think I
giant.
know what I'm going to be specifically targeting though in recruiting, I think, and as is probably about everybody else. Going to probably go for the tallest guys that are the best abilities.
do you think Max Play CFB is going to go through and make a video of optimal height, quarterback versus offensive line? Like somebody's going to do the data and figure out, like, if your offensive line averages 6 foot, your quarterback needs to be at least 6'3", for example.
Or you have to keep 3.5 yards between you and the offensive lineman or something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't don't go under center with them.
Yeah,
Exactly. Well, and
roll
I mean,
out.
again, that kind of plays into real life.
True.
Yeah,
You want some of those throwing lanes and you want to be able to kind of step back from
Mm.
them in the first place anyways. So
did
Right.
you
there was
notice
the old
did you
as I
notice more
said,
inaccuracy with that in the beta?
they had not announced that as a feature, so I wasn't even looking for it. I only played with Arkansas State, and I think their quarterback's 5'11" or something like that.
Hmm.
He may have had some off throws, but at the same time, I'm trying to remember actually in the beta, they didn't have real live rosters, so I don't know, how tall he was, but all the same, um, it wasn't anything I was looking for. It could have just been me rushing the pass or something like that. So I'm not sure.
Tommy, your backdrop reminds me. What did you guys think of the presentation? This was our first look at some of those in-game wipes and graphics, and I have to say, especially like I think yours is the pregame, like in your background, that wipe of, Alabama, Florida State. I thought that was some of this presentation stuff is really impressive. Looks really TV quality, in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, I think some of the early videos and beta
Mm.
leaks and things like that, we were kind of skeptical about the presentation, too many fonts or just the layout wasn't right or
Mhm.
whatever. But it kind of seemed to all come together once they kind of had the final product, which we assumed so, but at the same time, you never know until they actually release it. But yeah, this background, I like it specifically. It's just
Mhm.
that wipe of the two teams, and it really does seem to draw attention to the game and kind of
Mm.
who you're playing, and if you're fast enough you can get a screen cap of it
Mm.
and put that as your
Zoom background.
preview of the game or something like that. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think I saw one stat, like kind of a stat pop out of that score bug for the individual
mhm.
players. I liked how that transitioned out.
There was one sequence where I wish I had remembered the timestamp of where this was. I think it was showing a player stat or something related because over the right side of the score bug, there was a pop-up that said the team name. We'll just say like Tennessee Volunteers. It covered up the pop-up that was showing to tell you with the pre-play controls. So there was an
Yeah,
overlap in the. I don't know if you guys saw that. Like it's a
I
small thing, but I'm
did.
like, that's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
not good. That's not optimal for new
yeah.
users.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It should have, kind of showed above it or behind it or something like that. But yeah,
Mhm.
you can't see what the no huddle option button is basically. So yeah.
Right,
Especially when you need all the time that you can for pre-snap this year.
right. And there was one, I think on one of the coach settings, they were showing everything was the wear and tear sub in and out, if I remember correctly. Wide receiver was spelled, they put it together as one word and receiver was spelled wrong. And normally that's not a big deal, but when you know how many spelling errors existed in 25 through like the news tab and in, just throughout the game in general, that was a red flag that didn't get caught. So
Yeah, no, I agree. It's
small
again, it's the
thing,
small
but
things, but yeah, but it's still at the same time it adds up at the end. One other topic that we got to kind of see for the first time in action was the safety depth and
Mm,
width settings. That they kind of played around with that setting in the game and kind of gave you an idea. You can bring your safeties wide, really wide. You
mm,
can bring them really close, really deep, however you want to do it. So that was kind of neat to see, and kind of something to play around with, and especially in those late situations when you're trying to stop that bomb, you can, put your safeties way deep. It's a matter of remembering all these options
right.
exist in the moment, but yeah, at least now it's there. The other thing that they showed, and I think we thought it or kind of assumed it, but it wasn't always ever clear, is that now they also have the RPO keys, so you
Mm,
can do the read key or the pass key. Same for option.
mm,
Um, who do you want to key on when they're reading the run or reading the pass or whatever. So
mm.
again, something to play around with as the game launches, but at the same time, it looks like it could be pretty good.
There's so many cool things they added. I don't know how I'm gonna have time to remember it all, time to do it all. And then if you want to reset it, yeah, they have a universal, I think, clear settings option like for the coach adjustments. But what if I don't want to? I want to change the 11th one down, not not all of them, for example. I don't know how many there are, but you get my point there.
Yeah, on defense, it seemed like there was actually quite a few. So yeah,
Hmm.
and then as well, I don't know if you noticed, but also on that menu, there's now the wear and tear. You can change your wear and tear on the
Yep.
fly.
Yep.
So like if you want to change, if your quarterbacks are getting banged up and you want to, supplement them out a lot faster, then you can do that as well. So yeah, again, we got to see a lot more. We also got to see the stunts and twists in action, at
Hmm.
least, in terms of how you select it. And then as well, they showed on the field how to change it. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, I had to go through and take a bunch of screenshots just to kind of catch it all, but there
Right.
is a lot in the game, or excuse me, a lot in the video. And, it's kind of, nice to see, but you have to also be really paying attention if you want to catch it all.
I know I was watching in slow motion towards the end of the game when Bordeaux went to go sack Ryan Williams. The quarterback went all the way through a throwing motion and just was able to, as he fell back, hold on like this with the ball one-handed. And I thought one of the gameplay blogs said they kind of cleaned up quarterback play. I can't remember the exact verbiage. Maybe that was a one-off. Maybe it's not quite finalized, but I'm just like it worked out for Bordeaux at the time because it let the clock keep going versus being a shot put throw like it would have been in 25. But in real life, it probably would have been either a fumble or he would have gone forward enough to be an incomplete pass or he would have got it off. It just looked weird, and I think if we do it in slow motion, you see it. I don't know live how visible it was.
Yeah, there's no
Yeah,
way that
no,
he could
I,
have held onto the ball through that
y-
hit. He would either fumbled it or just
Mm,
dropped straight down.
or just at a minimum in that specific hit, as his back hits the ground, the
mm,
ball come loose or something like that.
mm,
Yeah,
Yeah.
he may hold on to it in the initial contact, but when he's laying on his back, then yeah, the ball should be flying out. Obviously, it's an incomplete pass at that point because ground can't cause the fumble sort of thing.
mm,
So yeah, but I think honestly, I think that's now by design. I think that's kind of what they
mm.
were referring to, but I'm not 100% sure. But that,
Right,
in 25, it would just be, it would go into the back of your offensive lineman or something like that, but it would go
right.
like a bullet for one thing.
Yeah.
Uh, and then, but yeah, now I think they kind of talked about having the quarterback hold on to that pass a little more often. So
Mm,
yeah, you still it still has to be, you know, find some middle ground, I think.
right. Every football game has something weird like that. What the quarterback does on hits. This might be what 26's is.
Yeah.
They also did mention the Heisman ability. I don't think they really like they mentioned it, but they didn't really go in depth with it. But I do know that maybe you guys don't know the answer. I did not see it in this video today, but I think it was on the Road to Glory video, for example. JB, you noticed before that in a previous video, that red icon kind of means that they had dropped an ability or tier. Your guess at that episode was correct. Well, I noticed on the Road to Glory one, I didn't see it today. There was a player who had a green arrow. I don't know if it was a chevron or we thought it was an arrow going down. So I don't know what green means of that. Does that mean up? I understand how it works, but I still don't understand some of the visual stuff in this game.
Yeah, I didn't see the green chevron that you're talking about. You're saying it's a green chevron pointed down?
Yeah, that was in one of the Road Glory ones. Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they just got the color off in that build or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, green and down seems to be, counterintuitive.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm looked at it weird. I mean, but pretty sure it was in the Road to Glory because I was going frame by frame. I saw it and I thought, what does that mean? The red I had figured out. The green
Yeah.
threw me for a loop.
Yeah, and they really didn't touch on it in the video. They just talked about letting him cook, getting him involved and taking over the game, and then that was all they did. They went on to the next thing.
Yeah, and they didn't really talk about how he got to that stage. I mean, what
Yeah.
triggered it, and was it just a matter of him catching a lot, or a big pass, or what it was? So yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely more to come there.
And so with those abilities, like it sounds like your abilities can go up or down also during a game. And I think it's only been like passing mentions. Like there's been no real concrete on how that happens either.
So basically you earn yourself the ability to increase to go, up to platinum or whatever, but you could go back down to gold in game based on your short-term performance.
That's the way I understand it. But it's like they've hinted and alluded, but they've never really dove into explaining that.
But if you're platinum going into the game, or if you're platinum, right now, and
Mm.
then say you go down to gold, I'm assuming you probably bounce back to platinum for the next game. I think it's probably just game to game if it's the way I think it's implemented.
Yeah, the Heisman, I'm almost certain it is just, you can bump up to Heisman just within that game. It doesn't carry over
Mhm.
to the next one.
Right. That's the way I
But
understand
there
it
was
too.
also downgrades. That's
Yeah.
what Chris was talking about
Yeah,
too.
but so I'm saying I'm with the
So I'm
Heisman
wondering if you could
ability.
go from platinum to gold or gold to
I think
silver.
if so, it would just be during that one game or something.
Yep.
I
And
can't imagine it would. Yeah,
resets back what your base is. Yeah.
yeah.
So what can we expect now? We're talking about 5 to 6 days, depending when you listen to the show. Well, it sounds like the preferred YouTubers will get videos out this weekend. They've had the game for several days. There's an Ultimate Team live stream coming on July 6th. So EA will be around and doing some videos during the break. Beyond that, I don't know what we're getting or when. It'll be more surprises, it sounds like, unless they announce the schedule maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. But remember, it's the 4th of July weekend. So I'm a
Well, and,
little
and that's
not
the thing.
expecting a lot.
You suggest they have to be working. You can just schedule that video ahead of time.
That
You
is
don't
true.
have to. Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
have to actually sit there and click a button to make it go live or anything. So
Well, they're gonna have a busy
Yeah.
week then. If they're gonna do that,
Unless they're putting out some things on the 7th and 8th during the early release window.
that wouldn't surprise me. They might do more that week to try to get more of the people who want to go in the stores because the diehards will get the digital. It's probably the people who pick up the standard, the stragglers, or people on the fence that they'll have to push. And maybe that will be next week. So during the first look video today, I watched it on my second monitor. Usually I watch it on my big TV. I thought I'm gonna watch it on second monitor. Probably wasn't that important to need, high quality audio, for example. And I noticed on the YouTube chat on the side, all of a sudden, maybe halfway through, college basketball is back. College basketball is back. And I thought, oh, okay, Joker, this isn't the time for jokes or funny business. We're trying to watch the college football first look. Well, after about the fourth person who said it, I thought I probably need to pull up Twitter and look and see what's going on here. And sure enough, EA Sports bring the madness. Let's run it back. Hashtag CBB. It's in the game, alluding to that they will be bringing back college basketball. Matt Brown followed that up later that he had seen data through FOIA requests that EA had put in bid. Several other companies had put in bids. And it's not like EA was in a good position. He put that out this morning. And then shortly thereafter, EA basically said they must have won the bid or won a bid to be able to bring back college basketball.
the one thing I'll say is I saw somewhere it was confirmed it's not going to be called March Madness. I
Mm,
mean, I don't think it's officially the name, but I imagine it will be, EA Sports College Basketball.
I'm sure it will be.
Yeah, I'm assuming
Yeah.
21 million views on that tweet too, by the way, for just in less than a day. Now, less than 12 hours
Yeah,
is pretty amazing. It's a shame, it's unfortunately it's gonna still be 3 years away,
at least.
um, at least, yeah. And so that's kind of the bummer. I was hoping maybe they were cooking it without anybody knowing, but it's still pretty cool to at least see it back in full force, just
Mm.
like college football has been over the past year.
It's one of those things that
I,
when
I
EA hired Rob Jones and Scott O'Gallagher, people thought at the time that they were working on basketball, but instead they're both working very much on college football. So that makes you think that if college football gets in a good spot, maybe they either are doing
Move
double
over.
duty, triple duty in Scott's case, or maybe they move over to work on basketball.
Obviously,
I
OG
did
is a
hear, and
basketball player, so it wouldn't be surprising if he moves over and
Mm,
focuses his full time into that
right.
eventually. Again,
yeah.
we're 3 years away, so he probably will still be on football for a bit, but
Mhm.
And he may just become the executive producer for all three titles or something like that, and just kind of puts the right people in place
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
you know lead from his example, sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, obviously he did great on college football. They he did great enough that they brought him in to do some Madden work as well. So
Right.
yeah, I imagine that they'll definitely have his input at least on college basketball.
Maybe he doesn't want to sleep. Maybe he doesn't like sleeping. So,
Yeah.
not to be outdone though, later in the day, a random person, Young So, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, said 2K should be making the college basketball game. And NBA 2K responded with, the campus has been quiet for too long, seemingly teasing they may be getting back into things. And to kind of go with that, Ronnie 2K replied to that tweet, which I'm sure he might have been the one who wrote it, who said, well
Yeah.
done. So what does that mean?
Find himself.
Matt Brown did tweet out earlier he has a big announcement coming tomorrow. He said going into July with a bang. So a lot of people thought, okay, he's going to go in tomorrow and say NBA 2K or 2K Sports is going to make college hoops again. He says on the topic of 2K and college basketball, via the memo for my reporting today, EA Sports, I'm just going to read the important part here. Part of their bid, building a game of this scale is a significant investment, and to maximize this opportunity, EA Sports is requiring exclusive action simulation rights. And to make this more clear, Matt says EA's proposal calls for the company to get those exclusive rights. He goes, but you can make lots of other kind of college basketball content that isn't an action simulation. Chris Vanini gets a statement from 2K Sports. They told him 2K is the undisputed home of basketball gaming. We have a strong history with college hoops and are exploring exciting new ways to bring athletes and schools to life. Class is in session. So, what does this mean? That by the time this episode comes out, maybe we'll have our news and answers, so we get to guess ahead of time. There's been some speculation. Is it a mobile card game? Is it college inside NBA 2K? I know Matt, and I can't give this away because it's behind his paywall on his site, but I will say that he did mention that there were several bidders who want rights, and some of them EA was a standalone, others very much not standalone. So to me,
I think
that implied inside a game.
I think it's going to mean two things. I think it's going to be your my player could start in college. You're going to play some college games as my player. That is, I would assume, the way to get around the action simulation. I'm assuming action simulation means a 5-on-5 game.
Mm.
And so if you play as my player, you're controlling one guy out of the group. So I think that might be they're out. And also obviously with NIL, I wouldn't be surprised if you see college players now getting into the my team stuff because 2K loves their VC and their my team and everything like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's a part of it as well.
And they did that with Paolo Banchero, didn't they, several
Yeah,
years ago? So I mean
yeah,
that
they did.
that wouldn't shock me as well. I
To
had the
me,
thought.
though, that
Go ahead.
what you described, the My Team stuff, to me that falls under action simulation. So, like I I struggle envisioning how 2K can do it within the scope of their current game without infringing on the action simulation. The only exception, and I've not played 2K in forever, but the only exception would be, their equivalent of, Ultimate Team. In theory, you could say that's not action simulation or something like that. Or the Madden, what was it, My Yard or whatever it is,
Mhm.
to where you could, have a fantasy players, kind of doing special moves or stuff like that. So that's the only way I can kind of envision it. And obviously, neither of those would be a true standalone game. I think they would have to be baked into NBA.
What about NBA playgrounds? I had that thought years ago that EA could, if they want to get into college, do NBA Jam because you'd have a much smaller roster size. You would save on costs. I don't know if it have the same appeals of 5-on-5, but maybe it'd have more in a way because arcade
Maybe
appeals to more people. 2K
maybe
has
they
NBA playgrounds, which they have seemingly dropped for the last few years. Is that where they go with this?
that second one was terrible. That's probably why they dropped it. Maybe they revive maybe they get the rights to an old franchise, College Slam, which was
Mm,
basically the college version of
yeah,
NBA Jam back in the 16-bit days.
yeah.
That could be a very strong possibility. Everybody knows NBA Jam, and now if you
Mhm.
combine that with college, and then you can set up online tournaments of March Madness, 64 people, 64 teams
Mm.
going at it online. Man, that I think people would eat that up.
I do too. I think there's a lot of potential with an arcade like that. Like I said, you wouldn't need to pay all those players Because how many players do you know on other teams beyond their star players? I would say very,
Hopefully
very
Matt
few to the average person.
and hopefully Matt expands upon what action simulation actually defines. Would my player fall into that? My team is the ultimate team version of 2K, so that is probably not. I mean, because I mean, my team, you're throwing those players in that are, are they just not going to have schools tied to them then? Because they're going to be playing 5-on-5. So if you could do it into my team, I think you could do it into my player as well. But I guess it all depends on what they define as action simulation with the
I would
lawyers.
assume anything 5-on-5 and anything close to regulation rules would be my
Well,
guess on what
I
that
would
means.
say I think you could still do regulation rules. Still think you can do 5-on-5 as long as you're doing fantasy roster building.
Hmm.
You're not using, and this is a guess, of course, but unless you're
Mhm.
not using the traditional teams and players and things like that, like
Well,
that
that's
you
where
can.
my player could skirt that then because you're using your created player.
I'm still there's still a lot to come out. Like we said, it's still 3 years away, so a lot can shake up,
Right.
in the next few years. And EA and 2K are going to do their thing and come back to the table with what they are trying to present. So,
Did
um,
2K say they were 3 years out too, or
They've said nothing but beyond these Twitter teases.
wow?
So we have
yeah,
no clue where they're at. And EA technically hasn't said anything either. We just know from what this proposal says and from what Matt has found. But if you remember those early proposals for college football said the game was going to come out in 2023 and it didn't come
Yeah.
out in 2024. And then when people said it got delayed, EA, we didn't delay it because they never said it was coming to that
announced it.
point.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, that does bring up a good point. I mean, in theory, NBA 2K, they could add it into the game next year. I mean, if they
right,
have an
right,
agreement, there's nothing to stop them. They already have the engine, they already have,
Yeah.
the framework. So there's nothing to stop them from doing it and kind of getting ahead of EA. So
right.
yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where things go from here.
So what is EA
Especially if they've
building on?
already had this, maybe, and 2K may have already had this in their pocket and didn't mention anything until this came out today. So they
Mm,
could already have been working on this for months leading up to 26 coming
mm.
out in October or whenever it comes out this year.
So what does EA build on? We know that they use Madden to build college football. Do they go back to Live 20 and build off of that, or
Uh,
this? I know they're going to say it's completely
Ugh.
different new, and I didn't think Live 20 is a bad game. I thought the franchise the last few
Jesus,
years was very shallow on features and depth. I mean, it
three
isn't like
years, I say build from scratch.
I'm
I
just
mean,
throwing it out there. I mean, it's easier if you have something to
I,
build on than it is to
yeah,
start
I
from
think you
scratch.
you start with the engine that you have, but
Mm,
you toss out, 60% of it and keep
right.
the good 40% sort of thing. Because I mean, obviously a lot has happened in the last 5, 6 years.
Hmm.
So they in theory they may have had two developers working on it in parallel, hoping that they would either get the NBA license or work on the college basketball license.
Right.
So yeah. But yeah, I can't imagine you start from complete scratch,
I
but at
don't
the same
either.
time, you've got to do a ton of work to what you already had because
Right.
I don't think anybody took it very seriously when it was launched, when you compare it to 2K.
No.
Yeah, not many people have really liked the gameplay. A lot of people preferred 2K's way of doing things,
Mm.
and so they really have to do a lot of tweaking to that thing to get that to
A
work.
lot of building, a lot of depth. They're gonna have to add to it.
It's two different games too, so
Yeah.
S- Something
style
I
wise.
did read about, and again, I don't know how true this is or anything like that, but I saw somewhere that it was suggested that this is not going to be an every year title.
Yes.
That basically the idea is, kind of like some fans have speculated, do it every other year, allow more time to improve the game year to year, and then you can continue your online leagues or whatever in between or whatever.
Matt put behind his paywall, so I can't give it away, but it could be an annual Tyler, or it could not be, which I know that's saying 50-50 on if it's going to rain tonight. But yeah, there's an option within that proposal that it may not be every year.
Yeah, I'm not a subscriber for him. I think I saw it on Reddit, and
Hmm.
I hate to suggest, but maybe they stole it from him.
They
But
might have.
Maybe.
uh, but yeah, at the same time, yeah, it's still a lot to come out and still a lot to be talked about.
I think all sports games would benefit from going just every other year instead of every year.
Big ones, I don't think so. There's too much money to be had in
Yeah,
bills.
Yeah,
definitely.
So what do you think this game needs? I'm gonna talk about the EA version because that's the one that's confirmed right now. I mean, I'll give you my pillars, and these are not groundbreaking. Gameplay's got to be good, no kidding. Gotta have online dynasty. I still cannot believe that after Online Dynasty was so successful back in '09 with NCAA football, that they didn't put that into the college basketball games or just every EA Sports title for that matter. I think you can overcome some flaws in your gameplay if people have ways to engage with the community and have fun and play with their friends. When you don't have that and you're just playing the computer every game for the most part, or just random online games against, God knows who, pretty easy to get sour on a title. Get more details right, something they struggle with March Madness and NCAA basketball. I know it's tough with 330
Now
plus
you got
schools,
triple the teams.
but Matt says it's going to have men's and women's programs. But of course,
Yep.
they usually play at the same venue, so make a stronger emphasis to get the uniforms right and get the courts right. Like arenas, like
Yep.
you don't generally know another school's arena all that well, but the court you recognize, and that was something they
Yeah.
really either didn't or couldn't in the past. I think they've got to make it a focus this time. Even if it's no matter who it is, of those 330, 360, whatever the number is now, I can't keep it straight. They got to really work on that. So that's, if they don't have those things when they launch this thing, I think it's uphill battle at the start.
Well, and in theory, they developed a lot of this technology for college football to be able to do the stadium scans and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You could, in theory, have the schools take, 100 pictures or however many it is of their arena and be
Mm-hmm.
able to capture,
True.
most of the arenas to that degree. So, yeah, I mean, you're right. They have to. EA has failed at basketball in general for so long. They're going to have to get it right. I mean,
Right.
it's been, their football game is good. People can complain about it. That's fine. But at the same time, the basketball was on such a lower level to
Mm-hmm.
to any other sports game in reality. So yeah, it's something that they've got to put the effort into and really have to see, the effort come out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would like to have them move their focus away from the one with, kind of what, the 5-on-5 where each player is controlling a player, kind of like, I mean, hockey does it well for EA,
Mm-hmm.
but they did not do it well in the last iterations of NBA Live. It was the same content, very little was really effort was put into it. I would rather see that effort be put into an online dynasty where you can culminate at March Madness as opposed to being able to control my player and play with
Mm-hmm.
four other guys. I can do that in any other game, any other basketball game that's out there now. So I would like to see EA kind of put their focus on to an online dynasty type of thing to where you can connect with others and compete in that
Mm-hmm.
tournament at the end of the year.
Live Run was kind of fun though in NBA Live 19, like 18 and 19, but it was so shallow.
No.
Like,
But it got
like
worse. It got worse as the
yeah,
years went on.
your
Yeah.
rewards weren't worth it.
No.
There wasn't really like any kind of tracking for clubs or community with it. They just everything with that game just needed more depth. I'm not saying that would have
2K
made it the
is
greatest game ever, but it just lacked depth on every avenue.
2K is VC hungry as they are. They did that mode very well with
Hmm.
the practice facilities and the whole world that they built with 2K on that. Yeah, they did that a whole lot better. But yeah, EA's it just got progressively worse, and you're just unlocking the same ugly stuff year or game after game. And there was really nothing. It just didn't seem like there was thought put into it, like for any sort of long-term play on it.
You can't think unlocking
Uh,
clothing was a big appeal to a lot of people. I know some people, yes, I'm not refuting that because you want your player to be unique and look cool, but I think to an average person, they didn't care about some of that stuff.
There were some good brands early on, like you said,
Mhm.
when the that live run was good. There were some good brands they brought in, but it just seemed like it just seemed to dissipate year by year as we got to the last game.
I will say the last college or last basketball game in general that I bought and played with any significant amount was College Hoops 2K8.
Mm.
Obviously, that was forever and a day ago, but I'm more of a college guy in the first place, so NBA had never really appealed to me. But this, again, they've got to get it right, but at the same time, this is going to probably have a similar launch to what college football did. Maybe not to
Hmm.
the same degree, but it's going to have a huge launch. It's a matter of can they sustain it? And again, they have
Mm.
to market it and show the right ways before the launch. But in theory, I think it's going to sell wonderfully the first year, but then after that, it's up to EA to keep it going.
And it sounds like they'll have NCAA involvement. They have to license the tournament. You cannot put out a college basketball game and not have the tournament. But
And not be able to
they can
say
come out
March Madness.
right. I
Yeah.
think they pretty much said like the NCAA is not going to be on the title of this game. They're just going to pay for the rights to use the tournament. And they're probably trying to minimize their involvement as much as possible, so they have no say over things. They don't need another entity ruling over them, with the creation and creative of this title. But you have to have the tournament. I think that's not a
They did,
shock that they will work with them to get that.
and that game did a good job of having two different broadcast
Yeah.
companies, basically
Hmm.
commentators, screen wipes, and everything. I think it'd be cool if they got it just focused on one and got CBS. I think that'd be a nice
Mm.
kind of presentation element, especially come tournament time.
Yeah, you gotta nail the tournament. Tommy,
Got to get that.
this is a good point. People are thinking, okay, if this comes out, let's say 28, 29, they're thinking start of the season. How does that line up with other EA titles though? Because I think they're not going to want to compete with their own other, products.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the calendar, if I'm not mistaken, this year, both NHL and Football Club come out late September, early October.
Mm.
I mean, that's right around the time that you would want to put out a college basketball game as well. So, you're not going to launch all three titles. So either somehow you're going to spread those out. In theory, I mean, college football is so big that in theory, a lot of people don't even pay attention to college basketball until January. That's when
Right.
conference season begins. That's
Yep.
when, really eyes start to turn there because most of college football is done at that point. So I could see EA launching this in January,
Hmm.
just
That's
to
my
kind of
guess.
give separation and give excitement building up to March and everything like that. So,
Hmm.
maybe launch it December 1st or something like that to be able to get the Christmas crowd or something.
Good
But
point.
I can see them, not necessarily having it at the season begins, but rather take on the momentum as the season's underway.
It gives you more
And that's
time to
what
get the rosters up to date and details up to date. And then theoretically, with a December, January release date, people can play their dynasty and catch up to the postseason when the tournament really hits. And
and
then
that's
that's
the
Yeah.
the
playbook
payday.
And that's the playbook that 2K's done recently with
Hmm.
WWE. They have now released that in December and January, January being Royal Rumble, which is the official start of the road to WrestleMania. So that's kind of the playbook that would make sense, as you said, for this college basketball game is to put it out in December or January. Yeah, December would be great because you're going to get all
Hmm.
them people wanting that for Christmas. So
Yep.
if they could do that in December of 27, hopefully we don't have to wait till December of 28. Hopefully December of 27, that would be great.
And I'm assuming they'll make this at EA Orlando. I mean, I don't think it's been discussed at all, but that's where Live ended up in the past. I think
Yeah.
that's where Rob Jones and OG are at. And I
Yep.
think Sean O'Brien still works down there. Who knows who will work on this title? And it'll be interesting to see if they bring over college football people to work on this, like some of the designers. I mean, they got the blueprint in some regards, especially as it relates to acquiring rosters, acquiring players. So I'm assuming that'll very much be help us, please help us, Lord, because there's a lot of players in college basketball. And this is a
Yeah.
pretty pricey investment. Let me rephrase that. This is a pricey investment when you haven't had basketball pay off in the past.
For sure, yeah. It's definitely something that they've got to get it right, and
Hmm.
we'll see how everything works out. But at the same time, investment in college
Hmm.
basketball, when you consider all the teams, men's and women's, you're talking about a similar investment, especially if you're paying the players the same
Right.
amount.
That's that's a big investment for a company that struggled with basketball.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. The only question is, I guess Title IX would help there, but are the women going to get the same amount? Um, I would hope so, but at
I
the
would
same
assume
time,
I would assume EA would
some
just give them the
arguments.
600 across the board and be done with it,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
bump it up the next year if the game does well.
Yeah, exactly. Just like they did for college
Yeah.
football. I mean,
Mm.
Yeah.
turn and spend some of that money back into the game.
Yep. So with that, we'll wrap up this edition of the Gaming Tailgate Podcast. As we said, College Bowl 26, less than a week away. If you're getting that MVP or deluxe edition, YouTubers putting out their content this weekend. Be interested to see what they share, if they release any unannounced uniforms like they did last year ahead of time. And the Ultimate Team live stream on Sunday, July 6th. Guys, the end is
For
almost here.
for that July 7th date, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's at noon Eastern, right?
Yes.
Yes.
It's not like midnight or something like
Nope.
that. It's yeah,
It's middle of the
you can
day.
download it in advance, but then you can't actually play the game until noon.
That's
Yep.
right. Like, so if you want to, get sick or develop a cough, you need to make sure that
Do it before
the
lunch.
game's at 11 o'clock.
Yeah,
Plays at
yeah,
11. So
you need to get food poisoning at lunch, basically.
yes,
So he had some bad eggs.
something at
Yeah.
breakfast really didn't sit right. So for Tommy and JB, I'm CDJ. Everyone, thank you for watching and listening to this edition of the Gaming Tailgate Podcast.
All right, boys, I'm gonna bounce.